I'm Katrina, and this is Sow and Tare. Today we're talking about volunteers. Volunteers in the garden means plants that planted themselves. So right here, this is our asparagus patch. It's all died back right now. This little guy, this not so little guy, this tomato planted itself. Look at that, it still has tomatoes on it. Still has all stuff going on. It's getting towards the end of November and it's already still there. Another thing that planted itself is from that asparagus. I have several asparagus plants that planted themselves. It hasn't come up yet for the year yet. It will. We ate this asparagus for the first time 2 years ago. It takes 3 years from seed. So that actually popped up on its own and we've been eating it. Volunteers are great. Here are some more volunteers. So this dead looking thing was a celery plant and it itself was actually a volunteer. And so it showed up after I planted some celery one year. And if you look, all those babies right there, all the ones over there, these right here, that's all celery, free celery. There's a little bit of California poppy in here too, but free celery. Look at that, we got celery and a pea that sprouted on its own. So it's important to let your plants go to seed because you might have fun things happen. Over here in the corner of my yard, I planted one borage plant a long time ago, which actually was a volunteer itself. And every year I get tons of these little plants from it. So a lot of the things that you plant will self-seed. And you can use them, you can eat them, you can sell them, you can do a whole lot of things. It's fun. And then over here is a mess right now, but that's where my blackberries are. And if you have blackberries fall to the ground, they will start a new cane and grow up, and you'll have volunteers you can spread around from that. Here is another area where we have volunteers. So this right here, this dead thing here, is actually, well, it's probably coriander now, but this was cilantro. And this itself was a volunteer. It's dropped its seeds and there's some in there growing underneath, but there's also some growing outside of the bed right here. So this is cilantro. And because it's not in the bed getting water, stuff like that, it's going to be reliant upon the nutrients and the water that naturally comes to it, and it'll grow and give us food, all for fun. It looks like we have some beets over here too in the ground. Now beets is something I haven't planted in years. I've not been successful with the actual root very often, but I eat the greens. So we also have tomatillo, which looks like it's mostly looks like this now, but we did have tomatillo volunteer this year. We got tomatillos bigger than this, but it volunteered over here, volunteered over there, volunteered in several beds, and so we didn't have to plant any tomatillo this year. It looks like we have a baby tomato, wrong season, but we'll take it, coming up there. Oh, and basil. I did not plant that basil and I just discovered it. That's funny. It's almost Thanksgiving. Well, maybe everything above it will protect it and we'll get to eat some. You can also have volunteer fruit trees. So this is a pit that either fell and rotted or I spit out or whatever. A peach pit. And this tree has been there for I think 3 years now. And it's looks to be doing all right. So over here we have a few beets. This is a beet. It planted itself Same thing with that one. It will get large. This is a beetroot. This is old and dead now. But that gave me food. I ate the leaves off of that for 2 years. And it lived in that little crack and I didn't water it. So it looks like there's a little baby there starting to. So these will grow in conditions that you don't think will happen. This one has some bugs on it, but that's okay. I can pull those off and give them to the chickens or the quail. But they have some really nice leaves and they're really tasty. And they have some vigor that the ones that you plant don't have. So again, here's some more beets right here coming up. Little babies. And then there's this mess. When I planted this for the summer garden, I planted cucumbers. I planted these, the Armenian cucumbers. And what came up was cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, and tomatillos, and beets, and pumpkin, and a whole bunch of other things. And that's okay. I didn't get very many cucumbers, but you know what? We got a lot of food off of this. Now here's the beet. I've kind of pushed it up, but here's the beet. Those are the seed ends. I think it's dropped most of its seed by now. But that will scatter and it will provide a new plant with new food and all will be well. Here's an interesting story. So I flipped these up because I've added mulch to the walkway. So they were all spread out all the way, probably out to there. But this is my sweet potato bed. It will always be a sweet potato bed because I haven't planted sweet potatoes in it for, I think, 3 years. Every year they come back. I thought that it was going to, I harvested them. They were really good. They're really big. They're originally from Baker Creek. And I thought I harvested everything. The second time I thought I harvested everything too. Turns out they just keep coming. So that's okay with me. I don't have to buy any more sweet potatoes. I don't have to care for them or start the slips or anything. I'm zone 9B, planting zone 9B. So that's something that I don't have to do here. Something I learned last year that I tried to implement this year. This year was a bad pepper year, but last year I had peppers. So here's a pepper. It's doing pretty good now. It has some riper ones down here. But last year I did not know. I really thought I got all the sweet potatoes, and so I planted a bunch of peppers. The peppers had time enough to raise up, and more peppers to raise up and be able to grow before the sweet potatoes came up. And so they were very happy. They got lots of sunshine and their roots stayed sheltered, which was really cool. Again, here's another beet. There's the live part right there. And I did have 2 okra plants survive. I don't know what happened this year, but anyway, these are the leftover sticks of that. So you can put a whole bunch of plants together. And I know the okra did seed. We'll see if they volunteer next year. I don't know. There's another volunteer right next to the chair here. It is right next to an apricot, but it is not an apricot. I'm gonna guess it might be the nectarine next to it or a peach. Not sure. Now this is a volunteer that has been a weed in my yard. This is what miner's lettuce looks like when it's little. Miner's lettuce is high in vitamin C. It's really good for you, but it does tend to take over seasonally. Claytonia is something else you might know it as. But this little corner has it, and I eat it when it's up here and volunteers. So here's another bunch of borage. These tons of borage, and you can eat them at this stage. When they get bigger, their leaves get a little pokey, but you can eat them at stage. They taste like cucumber. So lots of borage. We also in the front have a few apricot trees from pits that I'm sure I spit out and do that. So this goes up to almost my hip, so I don't know when it's going to give fruit, but there's one there, there's one right there, and there's another one on the side yard. So I mean, let your plants grow. If they start, go ahead and let them grow. This yarrow has been spreading. So this is yarrow, just starting to come out, and I planted it over on the other side of the yard, and it has spread. It's a very good plant. Going from there. This right here was flax, and let's see if I can get seeds they've left. It looks like they've dropped all the seeds, but just like flax from the store, like flaxseed that you would buy, this is what they look like. I threw out seeds for this several years ago and had a humongous meadow of flaxseed in the front. It was beautiful. But that will grow up and give us more flaxseed. And I think I'm just going to do one more plant. So all of these right here, I had purple tree collard on one side and just a regular tree collard on the other side of the walk. But all of these right here are some sort of tree collard. I'm going to guess a lot of it's purple tree collard because that's the side it was on. And all of these are volunteers, and we can dig them up, we can move them, we can leave them. They're going to be strongest where they grow. So you can make your garden make your decisions for you if you're not good at making decisions. So I have a pathway in front of my house. I originally planted this is nasturtium in this box, but funny enough, it always goes down here, and these are always the more successful ones. Now, this is in, you know, a mulch, a wood chip, so it does have some moisture retention. It doesn't last through the summer, but by then it's reseeded itself. So that's fun. A little bit of volunteer going on there. So right here, this is a pot for a grape that died, but we had volunteers. I planted these last year, and this year they grew, produced some. I'll just let that fall and make more. This tomato I also didn't plant here, so free food is always welcome. And here we have not only have a tomato plant in with this this grape that already lost its leaves, but we also have some sort of squash. Now it hasn't produced any fruit, but you can eat the flowers, so that's okay with me. Over here is also an area that I didn't plant tomatoes, and I have tomatoes everywhere. I even had a corn came up. I didn't plant corn this year. I planted corn last year. I had squash all throughout this area, and that's something I planted last year. I tried to do Three Sisters, and none of the squash came up last year, so it apparently overwintered. I don't know if you call that a volunteer or not. This is a plant that if you have it, you will always have it, so make sure you plant it where you want it. This is called Malabar spinach, and it is mucilaginous. And so it will have flowers, and then it'll produce these berries, and inside those berries are seeds, and they drop everywhere, and you can see, you know, there I have tons of little plants, and those die back every year, but every year you get new ones. Oh, and I also have a cilantro over here that volunteered. Oh, and look at that. That's a volunteer that I didn't know about. So this set of sticks here, that is actually quite large. It hasn't fruited yet, but it is a peach tree from my neighbor's peach. The squirrels eat the peaches on the fence, and so they gave me an extra tree. It's been there for a few years. Now this mass here is all volunteer. Volunteer from our worm castings. I bought, where's the flower? I bought what is it called? Anyway, I bought the fruit at the store, and they're really not supposed to be harvested before and packaged and then bought. You're really supposed to eat them right as soon as you pick them. And the word is escaping me from now. I'll put it up in text. Anyway, so they make fruit, and I don't think I may be able to show you any ripe fruit, but they make these lanterns, and inside is a orange fruit, and I'll show you a picture here. And they're very tasty. Now, I did not like these from the store. They showed up in my yard because of the worm castings, and they are very tasty. So give those plants a try sometime. Cape gooseberry is what they're called. I don't remember the other name that I'd usually call them by. Anyway, they are all volunteer, all of that. So, why do you want volunteers to be in your yard? Number one, it's free food. Number two, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to plant it, you don't have to care for it, you don't have to do anything. Number three, they're going to be hardier plants. So when a plant that you plant has seeds, some percentage of them are never going to grow, right? They have enough seeds that some are going to grow, some are not going to grow, some are going to grow really great, and some of them aren't going to grow very well at all. So the ones that do well and do well enough to seed and sprout and grow in your yard, they're going to have better genetics and better traits for you to carry on in your specific climate. So the seed packets that you get from the seed companies, they are great, but they are grown somewhere else. And if you grow your own seeds and you grow them in your own climate, in your own soil, in your yard, in the conditions that you are growing, you're gonna get the best and the strongest from those seeds. And you can continue to collect those seeds and continue to plant those seeds if you would like, or just let them go. You know, let them seed themselves, leave a plant or two to seed themselves. You can use vermiculture, which I will do a video on, and they don't eat the seeds, so you're going to get a lot of seeds if you use vermiculture, and that could be good, it could be bad. You may end up with 1,000 tomatoes, which, depending on what your situation is, might be good, might be bad. But you're going to get the strongest, and you're going to get them the best ones. So right now we've seen several different types, different varieties of food, and what volunteers also tell you is when it's time to plant your seeds. So like I saw cilantro is being planted by itself. You know, the seeds fell a long time ago, and the conditions are right now that they started to grow. So if I want to plant cilantro somewhere else in the yard, now is the time to do it. You know, if I want to plant tree collard, or anything related to that, so any of the brassicas, now is the time to do that. You don't get that direction from nature any other way. So you can see on the back of the seed packet, it says to plant between X date and X date. But in reality, when it's going to do best in your yard is when your plants are actually growing. So it's good for free food, it's good for longevity, health of your of your plants the self-sustainability. So if you don't have to plant your food and you have food, that's wonderful. Like, there's not anything better than that. But then you also have a key as to when you should be planting, if you want to plant different varieties of things, or plant things in different places, or you can just transplant what you have and say, I wonder if it's going to grow over here or over there. It can also tell you about microclimates in your yard. Let's say you planted cilantro in 3 different beds and they have 3 different conditions, and only one of them gave you little baby cilantro plants. Well, maybe that's the place that you should be planting them more often than the other ones. That's the place that it's going to do better. And so you can kind of do your tests that way as well. So I hope this has been helpful, and I know volunteers are really important in my yard because I use them, I eat them, I transplant them. It tells me when to plant things. So I hope this has been helpful, talking about volunteers. And if you enjoyed this video, you go ahead and subscribe and click the bell for notifications. And I hope you all have a great planting. Thank you. So I was just talking with my neighbor about volunteers, and she gave me some of her volunteer calendula, and I'm going to give her some of my volunteer celery. It's always nice to have volunteers.